One of the problems that we have in the culture war, especially as it pertains to media, is that even if a media outlet tried to be balanced, no one would let them. It just won't work. And the same is true for YouTube and social media. Algorithms for social media, which affect everybody, even CNN, every company, they're going to support a certain kind of behavior. If you make a Facebook page and you post a bunch of things from a certain perspective, you will attract people of that perspective. If you break from that, you will get punished. So what ends up happening is people start getting not necessarily polarized. This is worse for organizations, less for people. An organization like CNN then has a problem. If they produce a series of content that works really well for the left, they can't produce content for the right. An individual simply needs only tell their own opinion. It's more granular. So when CNN tried to hire a Republican editor, the left went crazy. Well, Daily Wire says, leftists whined, so now she's a commentator, which is still good. Listen, CNN should absolutely be hiring more conservative voices if they want to remain balanced. The challenge is people love their echo chamber, and it becomes very difficult for an organization to maintain some kind of actual balance. Now, for the most part, I think we're doing a pretty damn good job with Subverse, though still, we did a video on Subverse where Emily went down and she interviewed people at a protest. That was it. She interviewed people like, here's a protest, I'm going to interview people, they don't like Trump. And people said, where's the balance? It's like, well, there's no balance at a protest. You're literally talking to people who don't like Trump. That's all you're going to hear. And they wanted us, I guess, to go find a different protest where someone supported Trump, but we couldn't. So people will still accuse you of bias no matter what. I do want to point out before jumping into this story, I think it's hilarious when people would accuse me or someone like Dave Rubin, if you watch my video from earlier, of like shilling in exchange for money or something. No, you don't seem to realize. I don't, like, when I make these videos, I don't write down all of the opinions I think I should say. I'm literally ranting in these videos. I'm not making up my opinions on the fly. I'm saying things I literally believe as I say them. Yet there are some people who don't watch my videos who want to just assume, like I pre-script this, what will this group of people want to hear? And I write it. No, like I made a 22 minute long video about why I didn't like Captain Marvel. I didn't just make all that up. Like, well, I mean, literally, it's like my opinion from my head, but I didn't like pre-formulate ways I could talk about why I didn't like Captain Marvel. I watched the movie, I saw things, didn't like them, talked about it. But anyway, let's not tangent. Former spokeswoman for the Department of Justice, Sarah Isgur, will no longer be joining CNN as a political editor. She will now join as a political commentator, so bravo CNN for keeping her on. Isgur has gone through the hiring process and was announced as a 2020 political editor for the network on February 19, 2019. Isgur had no previous experience in a newsroom, but had apparently impressed CNN management enough to get the job, which is fantastic. CNN is, it's being mocked as the orange man bad network. Yes, by all means, bring on some Republicans, even if it means you've got to find people you don't think are necessarily, listen, the best person for the job is someone who can benefit your company. If CNN wants to bring in an editor who doesn't have newsroom experience, but she can help balance their perspective because they're seeing a bias, I absolutely respect that. They say Isgur worked for the DOJ under Attorney General Jeff Sessions and had drafted the statement announcing Rod Rosenstein would be leaving the department, according to Axios. Previously, she had been Carly Fiorina's campaign manager when the former Hewlett-Packard executive ran for office in 2016. In that role, Isgur was critical of then-candidate Donald Trump. She had also previously worked for the Republican National Committee and Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign. Politico noted, it was uncommon for former political operatives to oversee news coverage when it announced the hiring of Isgur. A backlash immediately ensued, with leftists claiming she could not be impartial when it comes to news coverage, as if CNN is known for its impartiality. Right, this is the point. She sounds like she doesn't like Trump. Okay, that's fine. CNN is the orange man bad network, but wouldn't it be great for CNN to balance their coverage? No, people on the left like that they have an outlet specifically for them. And CNN tries to feign, what did it say, the most trusted name in news? Yep. It's actually not true. I don't know how they get away with saying that because I think PBS is the most trusted name in news. It might actually be like CBS, but it's definitely not CNN. I believe. Jonah Goldberg wrote in the National Review at the time that going from politics to journalism may be more acceptable than journalism to politics. Recall that a remarkable number of supposedly objective journalists found job in the Obama administration, including Rick Stengel, Jay Carney, and Linda Douglas. What was unseemly was how so many of these journalists insisted, sometimes with biblical levels of haughtiness and eye-rolling, that it was nuts to think that mainstream journalists were biased. And yet, like a flipped quarter landing on heads 99 times in a row,
Whenever these objective reporters revealed their partisan biases, we learned, literally to no one's surprise, that they were run-of-the-mill liberal Democrats. Goldberg went on to suggest that Isgur's viewpoint being known, she might try to compensate in the name of balance. We'll never get the chance to know, as Isgur announced on Friday, that she would be joining the network as a political analyst instead. Hey, I can still respect that. It's good. You know, CNN has a problem of bringing on they bring on Trump supporters who are. I'm sorry. No. I meant to say they bring on Trump resistance members. Why did I say supporters? I meant the opposite. They bring on Republicans who hate Trump. Right? It's very obvious what they're doing. We're done. It's been a great vacation. It's been a great vacation, but I'm back on Twitter and news. I will go to CNN as a political analyst instead. We'll start next month on air and online. See y'all soon, Isgur tweeted. CNN's Oliver Darcy posted a statement from the network spokesperson saying Isgur came up with the idea to change job roles. Better than nothing. We can confirm that when Sarah came to us and proposed her role be adjusted to a political analyst instead, we agreed and we look forward to her starting in that role, the spokesman said. Isgur did not immediately respond to a comment. Newsrooms are dominated by left-leaning writers and editors. It is no surprise that a right-leaning person's hiring would enrage the left so much that she would need to change her position. Being an on-air personality, however, may be a more desirable position anyway, especially if the money and benefits are the same. Still, it would have been nice to know at least one right-leaning person existed in CNN's newsroom. Well, CNN is like, they try to claim they're unbiased. Of course they do. Most outlets do. But CNN is very obviously biased. And it got so bad to the point, Don Lemon is one of the worst. And CNN is awful. So here's what I want to do. In the context of CNN, I want to praise them for bringing on someone who is more right-leaning, because I personally believe we need a multitude of ideas to be challenged. And there are a range of acceptable ideas. After the far left and the regressive left, the range of acceptable ideas is basically, Stalin, and then everyone else is a Nazi or a fascist. But CNN leans too far left. And I think everybody knows that. When you go to, there's various fact-checking websites, they show that CNN is a left-leaning platform. CNN has to do what it can to fix this. Aside from that, let's talk about Don Lemon. Don Lemon, the guy on CNN who claimed that maybe a black hole could have swallowed the missing Malaysian airplane. Why he would even entertain the idea, I have no idea. And his guest went on to say that she said, even a small black hole could swallow the whole universe. And I literally tried to imitate her. She actually said urea, like I think she was stuttering. But no, a small black hole cannot swallow the universe. And I think it's funny when they rag on Alex Jones. Yes, Jones is infinitely worse than CNN when it comes to, saying things like that. Jones talks about interdimensional aliens and all that. But come on, CNN literally ran a segment where he talked about a black hole swallowing an airplane. Are you insane? Are you unwell? Don Lemon, who when I was in Ferguson claimed that there was no tear gas when there was literally tear gas behind him. And I'm like, how does this happen? How does that man have a job? He actually got voted the worst person in journalism by some organization a couple of years ago. And so Don Lemon, the reason I bring him up is that he is on the far left. He ran a segment where he repeatedly dropped racial slurs about, I believe, Kanye West over and over again. And so I have to wonder how you could try and feign objectivity when one of your primetime hosts not only says nonsensical things, get things wrong, but he's like not too far off from being an Alex Jones type character. You know what I mean? I wanted to bring up something else really quick as well in talking about the regressive left and the pressure they exert on other companies. And I didn't get a chance to do this in an earlier video, but I still think it makes a lot of sense here. And it's this comic from XKCD, and apparently it's an early comic called Dreams. Someone says, you should be more careful what you write. You never know when a future employer might read it. And then he said, when did we forget our dreams? What? This whole thing, which I'm not going to read through, is basically saying here that we can't predict the future. We don't know who or what is going to be, in change. Like, we don't know who or what changes. We don't know who will be in charge. We don't know what culture will exist. So you can't censor yourself. You can't lie about who you are out of a fear that you won't get hired for a job. I wanted to bring this up in a couple of the videos I made just earlier, but I thought this one kind of made a little bit more sense with the story we're talking about now, about a woman who basically lost her job, had to change roles because the left didn't like what she said. And quite literally, XKCD, who has their comic going far and wide where they say freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequence, which literally means nothing. We get it when you talk, things happen. He once wrote a comic saying, you should be true to yourself and say what you believe because we don't know what the future holds. He was right then, but what happened? A fall from grace. I don't know. He slowly changed, and now he believes that if you say things that people don't like, it's not a violation, of freedom of speech if they try and strip you of your job. CNN absolutely needs to bring on some people who can bring balance to the network. I think it's actually better that they're going to have a political analyst who is more right leaning. They have others, but they tend to just be like, they're conservatives, but they hate Trump, if you know what I mean. Looking at this, it's actually kind of sad. Now, don't get me wrong. You look at my content, you look at Dave Rubin's content, you look at anybody's content, you will see a change over time because things change. And I'll point this out too. A lot of people say things like, Tim is being red pilled, and that's just not the case. What's changing is the prevalence of the far identitarian regressive left, or if you want to call it the reactionary left, and the power they're gaining. And so someone like me who's in the center, I don't see the little things like the people on the right do. But when it comes to the scale of smearing Jordan Peterson, of smearing Kevin Hart, of canceling certain movies or whatever, that's when you start getting people in the middle to notice. And the crazier they get, they're going to start roping in moderate Democrats who are going to start noticing. Hopefully, we all notice and we snap out of this and we push back on these people. But I'll leave it there. Stick around. I got one more video coming up in just a few minutes, and I will see you then.